Welcome, everybody. Take two. I am so happy to see wonderful faces and names in the comments. Our beloveds are here with us, here together. Thank you for celebrating 1 year of podcasting with us. And I want to introduce our master of ceremonies for the evening, Tom Check. Take it away, Tom.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us. We are, like Kelly said, celebrating a year of amazing podcasting that Charles and Kelly have been doing through the Rocket Feather Creative Podcast. They've had, you guys are up to 40-something, 50-something episodes at this point?
52.
52 episodes of awesome people, awesome conversations that are just all about kind of the more meaningful, deeper level stuff that all of us can benefit from. So tonight we're celebrating the year with them with an evening full of music, more great conversation. We're going to get a chance to have Jessica interview the podcasters themselves. We're going to have book readings. We're going to have poetry readings, and we're going to have all sorts of fun stuff. So we're so happy to have you here today. I'll go through and really quick introduce the people that are on the screen. So in the music side of stuff right now, we've got Candace and Drew. They're going to be singing us a couple songs up front here. We've also got Brianna. We've got Adam. We've got Jessica. We're all going to be joining into some conversation in between songs and a little later in the evening as well. So that's what we've got to get us started. We're going to wait for some more people to come in. There will be more people joining the Zoom call, so you'll see more beautiful faces join in just a couple minutes as we get everybody settled and rocking and rolling, ready for takeoff.
Yeah, really. We have to do our check of is everybody caffeinated? I don't do this. He usually does it, so I don't do it in the right order. I don't know. Maybe the listeners know even better than I do. Tape is rolling.
Is the microphone hot?
Microphone is hot. Yeah.
Caffeine at optimal levels. Cats are secured.
Cats. They're somewhere around there.
Yeah, Munchie's probably hiding and Bill's in a box.
Yeah. A couple of things that I'm not super aware of what's going on tonight are around the prizes. Kelly, you've got prizes listed on there, but I don't know what that looks like. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
That's a good thing to talk about. Yeah, we're going to be giving away stickers all evening long. We have a big announcement in about a half hour, and then our sort of grand prize drawing is going to be right before we finish, and whoever is present, and we will pull names from the hat. So one lucky listener will get a hoodie, a nice, awesome hoodie to wear during this fall chilly time.
Awesome. That's so fun. And while we're waiting for other folks to come in, I'm just going to go through and have folks kind of introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about, who they are, what they do, and what it was like being on the podcast.
I think we're going to do a song first, Tom.
Are we up? Are we happening?
Are we ready for that?
We are ready for that.
Okay, fantastic.
Yay, music.
We'll touch base with everybody in just a moment then.
Great. Well, I think Tom already did it. I've been in and out with my headphones on, so I'm not quite sure, but I just want to reintroduce, if they haven't already, Drew Hall, my guitar teacher. That's what he's famous for, being my guitar teacher, teaching me the G chord. And he plays in more bands. He plays in so many bands. He's plugging in his guitar right now. And Candace Devine, who is a Grammy-nominated songwriter and our local blonde-haired soul diva. And this is the second time that they've been in our living room, and we just feel like you two. Yeah, thank you. You guys just totally bless our space with your presence, and we really appreciate that. Is there anything you want to say about this song that you're about to sing?
Pretty new original song that we wrote together back beginning of September.
Yeah.
Played it out once or twice so far, recorded it, live recording, and now we get to play it here.
Yeah, we're excited.
Wonderful.
Very cool. Is the camera on them?
The camera is on.
I feel like it is. I see, yeah.
I feel like, yeah, I see us kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
It doesn't really matter who's wrong. It doesn't really matter who's right. Been in and out of love for so long. I've gotten too tired to fight. And maybe I don't know what you're thinking. Or maybe I just don't understand. The tighter we hold, faster we're sinking. This vision of love that we planned. Holding me back, making me feel like I was never quite enough for you, baby. Holding me back, making me feel like I was never quite enough for you. Do-do-do-do. You my best for so long. I'm cashing in the chips of my time. And maybe I've known all along to listen to the voice deep inside. Holding me back, making me feel like I was never quite enough for you, baby. Holding me back, making me feel like I was never quite enough for you. Free from all the waiting, the hoping and the praying for something more. I'm tasting all the colors, drinking in the water of what's in store. Ooh, can't watch my life go by. Ooh, no more wasting time. Holding me back, making me feel like I was never quite enough for you, baby. Holding me back, making me feel like I was never quite enough for you. Holding me back, making me feel like I was never quite enough for you, baby. Holding me back, making me feel like I was never quite enough for you. La-da-da-da, la-da-da-da. Do-do-do-do. La-da-da, la-da-da, la-da-da-da.
Oh, chills. Oh my gosh. I don't know. So, sounds like that song comes from something that happened, maybe.
You know, I love that you bring that up. Drew and I often, when we're songwriting together or with other people, we talk a lot about ideas and themes. And as songwriters, it's really fun to know what that song is about.
Yes.
But it's even more fun to let it be yours, and you can decide. For us, I will say it is probably not genuinely about what most people would assume.
Okay.
So
it's a metaphor.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, in a way.
That's
It,
cool.
it can apply to a lot of things, and a lot of people can look at it in their own way and how they choose to feel it. But I think we've all had those feelings, whether it be a person or something in life that's holding you back from your full potential.
And sometimes it's yourself.
Absolutely.
Totally can be.
That's
Sometimes it's
totally what I
yourself.
was
Totally
thinking
can
too. Of just how do you get unstuck?
Right. And I think that was part of the joy of writing this song, is that we were very clear on what the origin of what kind of shot it into being.
Uh-huh.
But I think we both fell in love with the idea that it could be very personal for any person or couple or thing or place in such an easy way, even though, and I would normally be very transparent about what it is about, but it was such a personal matter that we discussed between us collectively that I'm going to let it.
It's better left unsaid.
Let it,
Yeah, we're gonna let it be a
stay
little-
unsaid. And I
well,
hope
that's
that
good.
whoever-
It's the mystery
Yeah.
too, and it's nice that you kind of let people fill in the blanks on your songs. I think we kind of talked about that last time too, of letting your songs go out into the world and be
somebody else's.
belong to the people.
Yeah. So, and like I said, normally I would go, oh, it's about this, or we wrote it about this, or this is where it started. In this particular instance, I think it's just more fun to let you adopt it as your own and let it be whatever you need it to mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. I love it. I love that. I love the new song. I was like getting chills in the garage. I'm in the garage,
thank you.
not at this moment, but before I was
currently
in the garage and I
You were
could
in the
hear it
garage.
coming around the corner. I was like, wow.
Yeah, it's a fun one. We had a good time writing that.
Yeah, we wrote it and then we played it on the square for the first time live.
Cool.
So, put it in the set list, finish it, get it going.
Right
I think we wrote it like
on.
Labor Day weekendish and then played on the square.
I'm so glad you have a better memory than I do.
I have a good memory for like songs and stuff. I can tell you when like almost all of the songs were written, but I don't know why I walk into my kitchen half the time. Like,
Right.
Right.
What am I doing here? But
You have to go back where you had the
Yeah,
idea.
That song was
I
Labor
am
Day
the
weekend.
complete opposite. Literally, I think I heard Tom go, and it's Friday. And I was like, oh, it's Friday.
Is it? Who knew?
Friday. I didn't know it was Friday. I don't know where I am 90% of the time. So,
You guys are a good team then.
yeah, so we're a good balance that way. Drew's like, you are going to show up at this date on time, right? I mean, or, date and time. And I'm like, I'll be there. It's in the phone. If it makes it in the
Right.
phone, I'll be there. Otherwise, I have no clue what's happening most of the time. My whole brain is just a swell of ideas all the time.
Things.
so,
Well, yeah, and that's good though.
Yeah.
A swell of ideas is a good thing.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to try the audio from Zoom again. Thank you, Candace and Drew. We're going to try and move on to the panel here. Let's
Sure.
see how this goes.
All right, I guess the first thing might be to just make sure people
I
can
can
hear
hear
us.
Tom
Is that
talking.
right?
I see Tom talking, but I can't hear him now.
Okay.
Here, Tom.
I can as well.
Oh, because I'm not plugged in?
Okay. Some people can hear me, some people can't. I'm going to wait for maybe a little bit of a thumbs up from Charles before I go in and we start doing check-ins, just so we don't have to do it again. For those of you who can hear me, who maybe didn't get it in the intro, we've got the next 2 hours full of really amazing music, like you just heard from Candace and Drew. We've got some really great discussions about a question that Charles and Kelly posed that is big, and it's a little intimidating. And the question is, how should we change the world? How can we change the world?
I love that question.
And how should we change the world?
Yeah.
Are we good to
No
go
sweat.
for sound, Charles? Okay, fantastic, awesome. So yeah, I'm gonna do a check-in, which Charles and Kelly do on their podcast a lot. I don't know if it's every episode. I think it might be, but it seems to be a lot of them that I listen to. And a check-in is just where each of us say our name, kind of how we're feeling right now, an emotion word, just to anchor us in the moment. And then I'm going to invite each of us to just give a really quick, super brief description of kind of like who you are, or what you got out of being on the Rocket Feather podcast when it was your turn. And I'll call on you to let you know whose turn it is, since Zoom is a little odd on that. So Brianna, I'm going to go ahead and start with you.
Hi everyone. I'm excited to be here to celebrate this big occasion for them. So I'm feeling happy for them. Hopefully you can hear me too. So that's okay. And that their podcast was the first ever podcast I'd ever been on, and meeting them and working with them helped facilitate a podcast that I now have for Prescott Woman Magazine. So it's been an amazing experience working with them and getting to know them as friends too. So it's just nice to be able to celebrate and keep moving forward with them.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
Sure.
Adam, I'll put it to you next.
Hi, my name's Adam. Feeling really excited, really happy for everyone involved in the podcast, especially for Charles and Kelly. Full of gratitude and really admiration, I guess, for just when I heard they were going to be doing one every week, I said, wow, that. I didn't tell them this directly, but I thought, wow, how is it possible they could do one every week? And that's just amazing. And they have. So just kudos to you both. Let's see. So I know Charles and Kelly now for, maybe 6, 7, 8 years now, through Boys to Men, just like as I know Tom as well. Came in as a volunteer mentor, worked my way up the ranks to be program director, and just a big fan of the work that we were able to do with the organization. The organization, of course, continues onward. But it's been it was an honor to serve on the podcast, because I'd never been on a podcast either, and I was just talking about things that I knew from working with Boys to Men, being a teacher for many years, working with youth. So I think at the beginning I felt kind of nervous about, gee, what do I have to offer? But it just felt just like talking with my buddy Charles, and it felt really natural. And that's kind of how I've been seeing a lot of these podcasts. It's just like hanging with Charles and Kelly, like sitting in their couch at their house and just hanging with some really cool people. So that's me. And do I pick someone, Tom, or are you going to choose the next person to check in?
I'll go ahead and pick, and I'll toss it to Candace, who I can't see, but I can hear.
It's me. I am feeling, actually, maybe this might sound not as exciting, but I feel very content. And I think that the reason I feel content in a moment of celebration like this is because when people put in hard work and put their passion behind the things they love to do, you get to a place where a year goes by and conversations are had, and it's a really satisfying, maybe satisfying is a better word. I feel satisfied. I feel satisfied for you guys. I feel satisfied that we get to be a part of it. So yeah, content and satisfied and excited. But I was a guest on the podcast with Drew, and that experience was lovely. Hanging out with you two was so much fun. And I believe we ended it with me going, can I just come over and hang out more? And so and
then COVID hit.
And then, COVID.
Yeah.
And 2020 just keeps on delivering. But, I think that being back feels wonderful, and I'm really thrilled to be here to celebrate you guys. I'm so thrilled you've made it a year, and I know it'll be many more years to come, and the wonderful conversations, insightful and heartfelt and transformative. And with that, I feel very content. I think everything that is meant to get to this point has happened. So congratulations.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Candace. Drew, how about you?
I would say I feel proud of to be a part of this, and to see what Charles and Kelly have done, and our friendship with Charles, for me, it's been quite a while now.
You always do that. That's a far better answer than mine. Make him go first next time.
There's not better and worse. There's just all real.
Everybody says that until they hear somebody say something better than they said. Sorry. Continue with your sincere and beautiful answer, please.
No, it's all good. That was awesome. But no, it's cool. It's good. I mean, I have my Boys to Men. This lives on me. This and my little winery dogs thing that my buddy made me. my kind of honorary mentor necklace that you guys gave me like 2 years ago. And one of those moments where I was like, oh my God, I'm going to cry. I promised myself I wouldn't cry. But he had all my students like come up to the front of the stage and they present me with this. And I'm like, I'm like, okay, I'm not crying. I'm good. But no, it's cool. So I'm glad to be a part of it.
We're still going to figure out how to make you cry.
It's not hard. And it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Drew. Yeah. Welcome to the party, Tracey. We are doing a quick check-in, and it's just name and how you're feeling and maybe what it was like for you to be on the Rocket Feather podcast. So would you like to go ahead and check in for us?
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's Tracey here. Hello. I would say I'm feeling jubilant. That's a good word. Here to celebrate a great podcast experience. I can speak for my experience. It was much more than I had anticipated. Of course, they always make you feel really comfortable, and you know that you're set up for success with the conversation, whatever it might be. Had no idea that it would travel into the most deep, soulful, philosophical conversation. It was extremely moving for me. I had no idea where it would take us, and it took us deep and far. And I just really appreciate the spontaneity, the presence, I think, that Charles and Kelly bring to the podcast experience. That's not something that can be taught. It's something that is innately beautiful and talented, and it delivers a lot. It really does. So I'm honored to have been on a podcast with you. It's my first experience as well. So I know Bree had mentioned that. And so thanks for introducing me to the world of podcast in such a beautiful way.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Tracey. Charles, how about you, my friend?
Oh, what's the prompt? I'm Charles. I'm feeling anxious and a little crazed, dealing with, I'm trying to deal with sound. I'm not a sound engineer. Why am I trying to play one on this podcast? I'm learning so much, and that's, learning is one of my key values and what I like doing in my life. And that relates to the podcast. I mean, Kelly and I get to have somebody in our house, even if it's over Zoom. We get to have somebody in our little Corona bubble every week and bringing their best selves and their most creative ideas. And I mean, it has sustained me. I'd be going, can I say batshit on Facebook? I'd be going batshit if it weren't for the podcast and for all of you and the relationships that we've developed. It's like, I didn't know Brianna hardly at all before the podcast. It's just such a blessing, and to get to know Melanie Banayat, and it's been great. It's been great, and I'm in.
Awesome. Thanks,
Banayat.
Welcome, Melanie. We're doing a check-in, name how you're feeling, and just something you took away from being on the Rocket Feather podcast. I'm going to let Kelly check in while you think about that for just a moment, if that's okay.
I am Kelly, and I am feeling nervous and excited and so grateful. Just seeing names of beloveds in the comments and the faces of the people who are here to talk with us on Zoom. This year the podcast has been literally one of the most important things to my mental health this year. And I am grateful to Charles for doing 90% of the work and letting me show up and just have a great time. So, I don't know if I said all the things, but that's me.
You said all the things. Awesome. Thanks, Kelly. Melanie, go ahead and check in.
Hi, sorry I'm late to the party.
You're perfectly on time, Melanie.
Right on time.
Okay, so tell me again. What is it? I'm just introducing myself. What?
Just your name, how you're feeling word, and maybe something that you took away from being on the Rocket Feather podcast with Charles and Kelly.
Oh gosh. Okay. So, so I'm feeling really grateful to be part of this community that you guys have been building. I think you guys are doing something wonderful for this area that we live in, and showing the good side of humanity, letting that shine at this time, which is so important. And what I took away from it, from my interview, was like, I have a lot of crazy stories, and you guys knew how to pull them out of me, which was kind of funny and great. It was a great experience. You guys know how to interview well, and so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. And I'm just going to interject in here real quick, Melanie. Like, your crazy stories have impacted other people's lives. Your episode has been one of the most popular, most listened to, most downloaded. So there's dozens and dozens and scores of people who are like, oh, picking myself back up. Oh, being creative. Oh, starting a business from scratch. Yeah. Your stories are having an impact out there.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad I can help.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'll go ahead and check in as well. Again, my name is Tom. I'm feeling a sense of kinship, even though I haven't gotten to talk to a lot of these folks in a long time, but I kind of know everybody on this call, which is awesome. My time on the Rocket Feather podcast was, it really highlighted, I think, what so many of you have said, and that's just it's the same thing I saw show up at Charles and Kelly's wedding, and that's just that they approach everything they do with such authenticity. It's so them. They're not afraid to be them. And I think for me, at least, that makes it safe to be me. And so when I got done with that podcast, it wasn't my first one, I don't think, but it was early on in being on podcasts for me. And I just took that with me every time I was in a podcast after that. It's like, it's the only goal is for me to be me. So thank you guys for giving me that to go into other podcasts with. And it's just such a gift. And with that, I think we're going to another song here shortly, and then we're going to dip into a deeper conversation. Is that correct, Charles?
Correct, but Kelly and I have a big announcement, and we want to first of all just thank you for Tom. Thank you for hosting and making it possible for me to scramble around and do sound, and for Kelly to interact with everybody on Facebook. But and thank all of you for saying such nice things. It's been our just joy and privilege to get to be hosts for you all in these previous podcast episodes, and to have musicians in our living room, and poets talking to us, and people reading from their books and sharing all the stories. And that's kind of leads into this next thing. We are rebranding the Rocket Feather podcast. We are done calling it the Rocket Feather podcast. It is the HERE.together podcast from here on out. And I'll let kind of Kelly talk about some of the reason why we're rebranding and why we wanted to celebrate with everybody here on this death and rebirth.
Yes. Yeah. It's kind of time for Day of the Dead and all of that.
Yeah.
We just kept talking all year long. Like, Rocket Feather just had a zing to it, and we picked that and we went with it, and we just had to hit the ground running, and we didn't know anything, and we were figuring it out as we went along.
Is that Mac in there?
And then as we were approaching a year, we started to reevaluate, and we would come back to it. Should we change the name? I don't know. And we were doing a staff meeting one day out by the lake, and it just, again, just like the Rocket Feather, it just kind of zinged. And what our whole thing is about us being together and figuring out how we can be together in a way that works for everybody in our society. The principal kind of flow of the podcast is, how can we do our own personal work so that we can be in relationships, so that we can be of service? And all of that. It's like being together with ourselves so that we can be with our close intimates, with our family, with our friends, so that we can be strong enough to be in community in a way that is functional and effective and fun. And you know, we've seen so much division in the last few years that it's painful for those of us who see the potential of having a society that says yes to everyone, that supports their own, you know. And we here in Prescott have talked to people like Jessy Hans, who's, you know, like trying to help eradicate homelessness and that kind of thing. A lot of people who are working with kids, who are educators, who, you know, it's like the people we like to talk to are the people who care about people. And so we want our podcast to really drill into that and reflect the heart of that message, is that we're about figuring out how to be together. And so this is what it is going to be going forward. And I am going to turn the mic over back to Tom and or Charles, and I'm going to go change the profile picture on our Facebook page.
Yeah, fantastic.
Congratulations, you guys.
Yeah, just
Thank you.
Just to back up Kelly's story a little bit, you know, when we started, what we thought our podcast was for us. The first episode is called "God Damn It, Now You Listen to Me," and it was about Kelly's and my experience of feeling like we never really understood how to get our voice heard, but then very quickly it became about all of your voices, all of those of you who've been our guests and people who are going to be our guests, and the joy that we feel in hearing other people. And surprisingly, the podcast started having an impact on our guests that we had no idea about. One of our guests sent his podcast episode to his dad, with whom he's a little bit estranged, and his dad responded, I think I get what you do now. So we're just like, you know, Tracey's mouth just dropped open, and that was when I heard that over the phone, I was blown away. And then we heard, I spoke to Claire Luge the other day. Claire was the new executive director of Prevent Child Abuse Arizona. She was kind of like episode 15, and we're like, we'll have the typical podcast interview where we talk to somebody who just got promoted and talk to them about leadership and how they got, you know, promoted and how they're going to pitch their nonprofit and blah, blah, blah. Claire took it and just went completely vulnerable and open about her own struggle with an eating disorder and recovery, and what it meant to be broken and to heal, and what it meant to be broken while working with other people who were struggling and working with families that are struggling. Well, it turns out her boss, the executive director of Prevent Child Abuse USA, heard that podcast, and it created more relationship between Claire and her boss. And we're just like, oh, okay. And then just 2 days ago, Hayden Gebler, who was the young man who was one of our mentees, didn't get everything that he needed to get from Boys to Men, and who went and ended up joining a white supremacist gang and got himself out and got himself in recovery and off of drugs and alcohol, and came on the podcast to tell that story. He messaged me 3 days ago to say, you know what, since the podcast, I realized what I'm really here to do. And so I quit my job doing landscaping and property maintenance, and I'm now working as a behavioral health technician, helping other people in recovery and helping them find their spark. And I'm just like, so we just feel so blessed and fortunate that that's kind of what happens. And so it's like, it didn't make any sense anymore for the podcast to be called Rocket Feather. Like it was this fun thing that was kind of metallic and feathery at the same time, and, you know, had these dichotomies in it and all this stuff. It's like, it made a lot of sense a year ago. But then COVID happened and the election and all of this wonderfulness. And that's when we're just like, it just doesn't fit. That name doesn't fit. Now, the business is still going to be called Rocket Feather. Together Creative. So that's,
the production company, the
production
mothership.
The mothership is still Rocket Feather Creative, and it's got a beautiful new logo as well. But the podcast has a brand new website, HERE.together.us, HERE-together.us, and we're moving all the episodes over there, and that's where it's going to be based. And we're calling it a podcast and a community. So we're looking for other ideas about how we can be a part of what's next for our local community and our country. Our local community is this terrible microcosm of division and hope and beauty and people with big guns down on the square and people like Candace singing on the square. It's like both of those things all the time. And I think we have something to talk about on the national scale as we work in this local area to be here together. Yeah.
Love it.
Well said, baby.
Yeah. Let's have a song.
Yay! Let's have a song.
Charles, I'm going to unplug and plug in a second guitar.
That's okay.
Are we good?
We're good.
All right.
Yeah.
Just crackle us to death.
Yeah, right?
If you hear crackling, at least you hear something.
Yep.
So I got
Yep.
to do this myself.
Yeah.
Don't unplug anything. It's working.
So you guys are going to play the song that...
Don't worry, child.
Don't Worry, Child.
Yeah. Kind of a stripped down version, but the same song nonetheless.
Right.
Yeah.
And Kelly just gasped, and I guess...
Pod favorite.
Yep.
Yay!
You wrote this with a bunch of compadres.
Well, Drew and I wrote it, but when we did the video, I brought in not all, but many of our local talented artists and tried to turn it into a collaboration, which I think was so appropriate, still is so appropriate.
Yeah.
But again, and this one I'm happy to share. We sat down and we were talking about future. I have a son who's now 5. Drew has 2 daughters. And when you're looking ahead with such a tumultuous year, like you said, and all the things that have kind of moved and shifted and changed and grown, and the divisiveness and the effort to heal, we were talking about all of those things for our kids and what it looks like to go out on your own and be into that big, bold world, and what do you do with that? And what's the one thing you can leave your friends or your family or those children? And the idea is that you're going to be fine. You have all the tools inside that you need. And if you're a good person and you're putting good out, you'll do just fine. So here it is. Don't worry, child. Big city lights keep calling her name. 18 wide-eyed with a burning dream. She's trying to leave her two-lane town again, but she knows it ain't gonna be easy. 'Cause where do you go, leaving all that you know? No one there to love you, wipe your tears and hold you when you're feeling all alone. You're living in a world that's big and wild. Just fill your cup, don't worry, child. You know, everything you need you have inside, and you're gonna be fine. You'll be alright. Hatchback packed up as she checks her mail. Pink hair pulled up in a ponytail. She learns her mama's face in great detail, 'cause she knows it ain't gonna be easy. 'Cause where do you be fine. You'll be alright. You're living in a world that's big and wild. Just fill your cup, don't worry, child. You know, everything you need you have inside. And you're gonna be fine. You'll be alright. You're living in a world that's big and wild. Just fill your cup, don't worry, child. You know, everything you need you have inside. And you're gonna be fine. You'll be alright. Living in a world that's big and wild. Just fill your cup, don't worry, child. You know, everything you need you have inside. Then you're gonna be fine. You'll be alright. You'll be alright. You'll be just fine. You'll be alright. You know it's
Wow.
live when you get a voice crack.
Yeah, I just want to say everybody's on the Zoom clapping right now.
Oh, yay.
Yeah. So that was for your kids, but it
In
became
essence, yeah.
it became something a little bit different for a lot of listeners. It became something different for me, for sure.
I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, it grew. It did its, we put it out into the world, and it's, I think, over 10,000 views now and lots of beautiful comments. And I think it just hit at a time when I think everybody needs that reminder. It is
Yeah.
what you have. It is about what you have inside. It is about the world that you make it.
Yep.
It is about the way you go out and handle yourself. And I think we all will be better if we remember that, when you're treating others how you want to be treated, the world is your oyster.
Yeah. Well, and the line about what's the line? It's a big scary world. What's from the course?
You're living in a world that's big and wild.
Yeah.
Just
and
fill your cup.
You released this right in March, April?
That's true.
Okay.
I have no idea.
So we wrote it March 6th.
Oh, gosh.
My birthday's
good.
March 8th, so I remember
Okay.
that's 2 days before my birthday.
That's so okay.
But also, everything shut down, and we started getting news of COVID like the next week.
Yeah.
Like we did the next Friday, like the week after we wrote it. So then when the time we recorded it was mid-April. And we were right in the heat of it was like full lockdown. We were in, your parents'
Which
barn.
is why
filming the
we
video,
did it in the barn.
all spread out,
Because my parents have this massive barn, and I was like, it's outside. We can leave all the doors open. We put the horses out because we thought they'd freak out. And, we literally, I think it's hard to see on the video, but everybody was very spread
Really
out.
spread out,
Yeah.
yeah.
And people arrived. We were all masked up. We got in our spots, demasked, and got ready. Played the song 3 times, remasked up, got out of the barn, and everybody went home.
Yeah.
And I think when we did the third take is the one that everybody heard. We did one to test.
Yep.
One is a run, and then we were like, let's do a second take just for safety. And then I think everybody felt the magic on it. Everybody went,
Yeah, the third one was it. And it's all, unedited as far as
there's not a
straight
one,
take, throughout the whole
it's
thing.
It's a 100% live performance. But it sounded so dang good in there that I think most people don't know that it's a live performance.
Yeah.
But everybody just hit stride on that and felt it.
Check it out. So check it out on YouTube, everybody. It's
Yes,
Don't
yes.
Worry Child.
I put the link in the
awesome.
Cool.
Facebook chat. Excuse me.
Perfect. Yeah, it raised.
So everybody could see the polished version because it's fan flippin-tastic.
Yeah, well, this version just raised the hair on my arms just like it always does, and it's, I think you all hit it for me, it's a big, scary world, and none of us have experienced this before. We're all children. We're all trying to figure it out right now. So yeah, this is an anthem. This has been the COVID anthem for me, even though that wasn't exactly.
Well, and again,
it reminds me. My heart goes out to Rosalind, and when I think about how she's trying to put her life together into your little boy, and
and to kids right now through COVID, learning on computer screens and not getting that interaction and not knowing when they get to get back out into that world, So, I love that thematically it has taken on kind of personal meanings for everybody. I love that. And I think that at the heart of it, the reason it has done that, like I said before, is just that it's kind of just a nice reminder that, the world's bigger than all of us. So let's just put our best foot forward.
Amen. Amen. Kelly, are there any questions or comments from the interwebs?
Not at the moment.
Awesome.
Everybody's stunned into silence. But if you do have a question for Drew and Candace, if you pop it into the comments, I will be happy to pass that along.
Great. Well, they got to run soon. You guys have a gig tonight, right?
Yep. Thankfully.
Yeah. Drew and Candace, another round of applause for
Thank you.
These two wonderful musicians.
And congratulations, you guys. Thank you so much for having us.
So many congratulations, you guys.
Aww.
For everybody that's watching, they keep seeing me turn this way. It's because that's where you are, and I can tell what's happening.
We're all looking at it.
But yeah, you guys, fantastic job. First year down, many more to go.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to pass it back to Tom.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Drew. Thanks, Candace. Amazing. We're going to open up a discussion now. We've got a room full of really awesome people. We've got school teachers. We've got life coaches. We've got owners of co-working spaces. We've got organizations serving youth. We've got authors. We've got podcasters. We've got all sorts of awesome, amazing people. And before we started this, Charles and Kelly invited us to ponder a big question. What should we do to change the world? And so I'm just going to open up the floor for the wonderful people on this call. And I invite you, the watchers at home, to post into the comments, what do you think we should do to change the world? So who wants to kick us off?
I've got a short and easy one. We should listen to Black women.
Ooh, Laura. Fitton.
Especially for elections. They know what's going on.
Nice.
We're catching up. They've been at it.
Okay. Thanks, Laura. That's great. What else do y'all think?
Well,
how do you think we should change the world?
I agree with what Laura said very, very much. I'm going to take a different angle. I think we need to learn to communicate or relearn to communicate with people who disagree with us. I find myself on the liberal side, and I find this to be a struggle all the time. But I see how we're being torn apart. And I so hope our country and our world can heal. And I see that as something we need to do.
Awesome. Thanks, Bill.
I'm going to piggyback on Bill, if that's okay. Thanks for having us. And Charles and Kelly, you guys are amazing. And you asked the best questions. So when I got this one, I wasn't surprised. But what came, I really am in alignment with what Bill said. And I feel like we need to restore the art of having tough conversations and putting religion and politics and sexual preference, whatever the topic is, back on the table, and learn the art of grace and communication. And that's really what builds our connections and forges our tribes and, for our sense of belonging. And it's sad that we've given up that skill set. And I teach that skill set. I believe in that skill set, and I know we can learn again. And it's just really important.
Awesome. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'd like to go a slightly different direction and maybe expanding my viewpoint through listening to youth. Working with Boys to Men really opened up my eyes to the power of listening. And, I remember talking with Charles a long time ago, the voice-to-man model of, we're not leading youth anywhere. We're walking with them. And I think part of that willingness to walk is that willingness to listen. And that's something that I know all of us can do. And if we want to change the world, it's not that we need to be better role models for the youth. It's we need to listen to what they have to say, because they really are the future. And I know it's a cliche, but it is true. And I think the way that starts with all of us is just being willing to listen more and put aside what we think we know and just listen.
Fantastic. Thanks, Adam. Melanie, Tracey, what are your thoughts?
Sure. So when I do some volunteer work for a therapeutic boarding school for girls teen girls that are at risk. So I, have a lot of to piggyback off of Adam as well. But there's a lot of family work that's done in those workshops that we volunteer for. And one of the workshops that is probably the hardest workshop that they go through as a family is something called family sculpting. And that is where the family is guided with a therapist to give everybody a chance to be heard, give everybody a chance to speak about their experience that they just went through. Because we're all experiencing this time and having our own individual dramas and traumas going on and figuring out how to respond to all of this. But we're not listening. We're not hearing what everybody's experience is right now. We just know I'm going through this really hard thing right now, and I don't know how to deal with this, and I want to be heard. So I think, really understanding the power of listening to others and understanding that everybody needs a chance to be heard as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Melanie. Tracey, I'd love your thoughts.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing so far is really holding a sacred space for anybody that we come in contact with, and also holding a sacred space for ourselves. So I was deeply involved over the last 30 years in community organizing and dealing with tough issues in community like substance abuse, recovery, that was really powerful work, and doing it on a collective level is there's no experience that's like it. It's communal and tribal, and you're part of a solution, and you meet a lot of different people that way. I believe in that collective volunteerism. I also believe that we have to, in these times especially, understand where are we coming from as an individual. So I'm supporting work that's about designing your own destiny, really understanding, how am I? How am I really doing? What's my well-being? How would I qualify that? What are my strengths and my talents? What's my vision, my life vision? What's my mission here? And with that clarity, then that intentionality, then I think that we free ourselves up to do so much more in the world, that we are part of the solution if we're also looking at who am I and how am I standing in the world. That we talk about holding a sacred space for others. I think it's also important that we hold a sacred space for ourselves and take a look. And it's not a scary process if you're doing it with others, and that there's inspiration and there's wisdom and that we can come through that introspection and become better people. And in fact, I have to tell you, Stasia, you were talking about communication skills. Well, doing this workshop on designing your destiny, one of them was really good at communication skills, and we all agreed we need to re-up on that. And so I'm taking a communication class again. And I'm also much more intentional about how I want to be in the world today and what I'm capable of. And so I've decided to become a hospice volunteer, to hold a sacred space for those who are in the process of dying. And I believe life after life. And I want to be there as a bridge. I also believe that we should be here as a collective, whatever group we belong to. And I belong to Unify Sedona, and that is about LGBTQ and their allies. It means all of us. And if we can positively impact the most marginalized in our communities, then we're actually positively impacting ourselves. If we strengthen the weakest links in our community, we're part of that, we're also strengthening ourselves.
Yeah, that's great. And I hear a lot of commonalities in kind of that, using listening as a tool, both with others and with ourselves, in order to create change. And I think it's so interesting that's what we all see as the path forward, is to be here now together, right? Like, be able to be in community with others, with ourselves, and to hold space and grace for everybody involved in those conversations. Kelly, I'm curious, any notes from the interwebs on this front?
Nobody's chiming in. I've been trying to put a little summary of what everybody said in there, and I welcome the listeners to like or reply to any of those. And let's mix it up and have a good discussion on this.
Yeah.
Good.
I want to invite Jessica to give her 2 cents as well, and then I think we're going into a reading. So, Jessica, how should we change the world? You're back. You left. You came back again.
Yes, hi, I'm back. I'm also wearing the hat of mother today. And so, speaking of changing the world, I would say that it happens in our homes, right? So I just actually had to separate the two brothers and remind them how to treat each other. And if they can't be kind to each other, then maybe they need a break from each other. And, how would they work that out? And so I really think that that's what it is. It's, I shared this in the podcast that I did with these guys, and I didn't get to chime into that part. So I do want to acknowledge and honor that it was really, really wonderful to be a guest on your podcast. And it was, I think, my first podcast I did. So thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of that experience. And that was really what we talked about, was this idea of, modeling what's available. And I think that can be so powerful, and it can happen in our own homes. It can happen in our communities. It can happen in our professions. It can happen, just in the grocery store, right? And so being able to get to this place where, just a second, I might have to pause. I have another little one coming in. But being able to, allow ourselves to honor other people's experience and not take it personal, and just really hold space for that person and recognize that there's this place of articulation and acknowledgement that is so powerful. I just got done training a group of women for Full Circle, and we went through the whole listen, accept, and encourage part. And it was so beautiful because it's all about being able to, sorry, just a second.
That's great.
It's not a Zoom meeting without a pet and a baby.
I know, where's mom?
All happening.
I gotta get her. And anyway, so here, I'm gonna pause and I'll be right back. Okay, guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, she's reorienting. I just want to make a pitch for fierceness, and I didn't hear everybody's comments because I'm scrambling around and helping the musicians get out. But one of the things that has gotten us where we are is that those of us who are the kindest, those of us who listen the most, those of us who are the most open, those of us who are the most gentle, don't always get our way.
All right. Yeah. Speaking of our way.
Yeah. So how can we together support one another in being fiercely dedicated to one another, and fiercely dedicated, as Tracey said, to the most affected among us, to the least among us, to the folks who are having the most trouble, whether it's Jessica's kids, right? Like, they're vulnerable, right? They're little. Whether it's LGBT folks, whether it's folks, stepping over the threshold and dying, can we be fierce for one another without worrying about whether or not we're stepping on somebody else's toes? Of course, we're always going to be worrying about stepping on somebody else's toes. But I imagine if we do it together, we can keep each other aligned without our egos taking off, coming from humility and coming from connection rather than ego. So a rooted community-based fierceness is what I think we need to have in order to change the world.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you, Charles. And I'll open it up. Any other thoughts on this kind of before we move into the next piece of the wonderful evening?
Well, did Jessy get to finish her thought?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I'm not sure where I was really at. I think Charles probably ended it very eloquently for me, but it was really just about holding space and recognizing that everybody's experience is their experience in that moment. And it's not about having to be right or wrong. And I feel like Tom said that earlier. It's not about better or worse, right or wrong. It's just like hearing, just allowing ourselves to hear the experience, allowing themselves to hear themselves speak. And I think what happens when we get into this place of arguing with each other or making a point, that all that really does is create a defense. And so then it's not really coming from this like authentic, safe space anymore. Now it's about like trying to maybe talk over or tell them what's really right, instead of like seeking to understand where that thought or experience even stemmed from for them. And so I love that piece. It's just really like, I wonder what it would look like to seek to understand where people are coming from, and if that would help us not feel as triggered sometimes by comments of contrast.
Yeah, totally. I love it. There's so much common ground in here, and so many wonderful different little directions we could take it. Thank you all for sharing. That's just, the very beginning of the answer. But if we're all sitting here together doing our parts, then the world is going to get better. So thank you for that. And I pass it off at this point, I believe, to Adam, if I recall correctly, to introduce our next wonderful speaker for the evening. So thank you all for engaging in that conversation. And Adam, it's over to you, my friend.
All right. Thanks, Tom, for hosting the first half of our celebration of the 1-year anniversary of the Rocket Feather podcast, now going to be called hereinafter the HERE.together podcast. Yes, wear those shirts with pride. And to start off the second half of our live event here, we are joined by noted author Bill Konigsberg. Thanks, Bill, for joining us today. Just a quick bio of Bill, and hop in, Bill, after I finish if I missed anything. Bill is an author of 6 books for young adults, which have won multiple honors. His newest work is The Bridge, which he'll, I think, be reading for us a little later today. Yeah, all right. And I just have to say, I met Bill a few years ago through Boys to Men when he came up to do one of our rite of passage weekends up here in the Prescott area. And, I was struck by Bill's, deep compassion, his intelligence, his grace, and his wisdom. He was a huge asset to the weekend. And, we'd love you to come up and do another one with us, Bill. Bill lives now in Phoenix. Yeah, with his husband, Chuck, and his 2 Labradoodles, Mabel and Buford.
We love them.
You see, are they there today?
I have left them out of the room. They're too noisy.
Yeah. So, Bill, you're going to read for us a little bit from your new book. Would you like to kind of set that up for us? What does the audience maybe need to know?
Well, the first thing I have to say is that it is amazing to me that I didn't know the rebranding of HERE.together, but it's as if I got what this was about somehow just because the reading I'm reading from is about that in a lot of ways. It's about two characters who are here together. This book is a departure for me. This is called The Bridge. My first 5 books really were about LGBTQ characters, and while one of the characters in this book is to really not central to the story. This is a book, trigger warning, suicide and mental health issues. This is a book about 2 characters who are depressed, who meet atop the George Washington Bridge. They don't know each other, and basically they interrupt each other's suicide attempts. And what happens the moment that they sit 100 feet apart, one leg over the railing each, the world actually splits into 4 different realities. And so we get each of them. We find out what happens when the boy jumps and the girl doesn't. Then what happens when the girl jumps and the boy doesn't. Then what happens deep in the future with people we don't even know yet when they both jump. And then what happens when they both decide to stay another day. And it's a book about options, and I'm somebody who's suffered from severe depression. And I know at those moments when I felt least hopeful, I haven't felt like I've had an option. So I wanted to write a book where I explored them. And the part I'm going to read to you from is from the last section when they both decide not to jump. And this is the day after that. These characters barely know each other, but they've decided to stick together because they have to. There's no way around it. They're very different characters. And Aaron has just had a terrible experience at school, and Tilly has come with him to Coney Island in New York, and they're sitting on the boardwalk. And Aaron has just, for the first time, sobbed in front of Tilly. And she asks him, a question, and this is what happens. Aaron takes a breath and expresses his existence to the ocean. Sometimes I honestly can't even explain what it is. It's just this thing, this feeling in the pit of my stomach. It's disappointment with myself that I'm not better, that I'm not someone people like more, or someone who's more talented or better loved or worthy of the attention I seem to need just to survive. To be more like my fish, but the human version. Tilly says, more like human fish? He rubs his forehead. I love my fish. I have a 60-gallon tank and currently 7 goldfish. There's Brittany spearfish, Tina tuna. Oh my God, she says, and she rolls her eyes and her face heats up a bit. He cracks a smile. You're going to leave now, aren't you? She stands up like she's about to walk away and then sits down again. He says, so anyway, they just swim around all the time. When you look at something and you know there's no sadness there, that's my fish. There's a nobility to being a fish, I think. And she says, fish nobility. He says, they aren't swimming around in a circle thinking, oh, kill me, this is so boring, which is exactly what I'd be thinking. That's the connection, I think. She crosses her legs and leans back on the bench. You know what? I actually really get that. You do? She says, I do. Ugh, he says. It's hard because the problem is me, obviously. Tilly scratches her forehead in a way that she hopes translates as, yes, I too am the problem, without her having to say it. Aaron goes on. I have no real problems. My dad has enough money to survive. I have a scholarship to Fieldston. I don't get bullied. And I don't know, it's like I know I should be happy, but nothing gets through. She does something that surprises her then. She touches his knee lightly with her fingertips. Then she removes her hands and averts her eyes, embarrassed. She shouldn't have touched him. She hates when people touch her without her permission. But yeah, it just sort of felt like it was a moment that she needed to make contact a little. And that's where I'm going to end. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Bill.
HERE.together.
For sharing that.
Thank you.
That was wonderful. Look
Thank
forward to reading the whole book.
I hope you do.
So I thought we'd take a minute to, Charles, if we're still okay on the timing here, to just check in with Bill on that passage. And I'll share a little bit. Maybe, Charles, you want to jump in. But, the thing that strikes me the most about what those 2 characters were talking about is this idea of this should, that I should be something other than that what I want to be. And, the other character mentions that, I should be happy. And, that's something I encounter a lot when working with youth and with other people, with all of us, is the idea of this, I should be something other than what I am. And when we focus so much on the shoulds, then we move so far away about what we are and what we could be when we're in that area. But Charles, what was your kind of takeaway? What did you notice that stuck out for you?
Thank you, Bill. Thank you for writing that book, and just thank you for putting out into the world what so many of us feel but hide because we don't think anybody's going to accept it. And you do it on Facebook all the time. I messaged you, today or yesterday about your vulnerability on Facebook and how it moves the window for what's okay for me. And
thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd love to hear what anybody else thinks on the Zoom.
Should I say something or do I?
Sure. I'm seeing Stasia over there. Stasia's having feels, but we'll let her. We'll let her.
No. Somebody else, please. I've spoken enough.
Go for it, Bill.
Okay. I heard a lot of what people were just saying, and I feel that that's sort of what I'm writing about, this idea of isness, rather than shouldness, and about just simple connection. And that's why I read that passage, was this idea. Tilly was adopted. She feels very separated from the world, and she just at that moment feels like she has to put her hand on him. And there's something about that does feel world saving to me. How do we put our hands figuratively on those who need that? And it's a two-way street. Of course, we all need the contact, but boy, am I feeling a lot of that right now in terms of the world, just the need to be in contact with others. What does that open up for anybody else?
Yeah, I totally agree, Bill. I mean, that was the part that touched me the most, was that I'm very touchy in that way also. And it's like, when somebody's going through something profound, like what words are there that are even adequate, but to just reach out and the smallest touch, excuse me, excuse my cat's butt, the smallest touch. But I mean, even it's like the smallest touch can mean so much, or just making eye contact with someone and not breaking it for a moment, not kind of shifting away because you're nervous or whatever. It's like that, which is, I guess, what we have to do now with our masks on and everything is to, and I try to do that when I'm in the store, of like, make eye contact with people if they're willing. And not a lot of people are willing to make eye contact these days, I've noticed. And, but I think it matters. And someone did that for me one time when I really needed it, and I try to pass that on and do it for others.
Yeah, I love that.
And sort of like what Tracey was saying about like holding the space, like you can do that in a moment when you're passing a stranger in the grocery aisle or on a sidewalk.
Yes. I don't know. My heart opens up with those commonalities. And sometimes eye contact is the only commonality I need, just to know that there's another person there, so that I stop thinking about me, start focusing about we, not the French version.
And my bestie, Michelle Moyer, says the book sounds fantastic, or terrific, she says.
Thank you.
I said fantastic. I can't wait to read it.
Thank you so much, Kelly.
Yeah, I've ordered it for our library district, and it hasn't shown up yet. I'm like,
where is it?
Where is it? Yeah.
Ooh, there was a printing problem back in New York.
Oh.
Ooh, yes.
Ooh,
it's better now, but it's taken a little while. COVID has ruined everything, including the launch of my book.
Yeah.
And then the name of the book is The Bridge, right?
The Bridge, and I'm
The Bridge, Teresa. Yeah. Awesome. By Bill Konigsberg.
So, Bill, I'm wondering whether or not, and maybe this is too presumptuous, but you personally and your characters go to the edge of existence. They go to the edge of life. They go to the edge of their emotions. They go where most of us try not to go. And yet here we all are in 2020 with despair and hopelessness and bewilderment for all of us. And I'm wondering whether or not you feel like your ability to write about depression and the edge. I said this to you on the podcast that we've all got one leg over the railing on the bridge now. Our whole culture has one leg over the bridge. Do you feel like you're bringing messages back from us from that place?
I think that I certainly didn't know when I wrote this book where we would wind up in 2020. And I think it has been a very interesting experience to watch people connect or disconnect from the book, because there are people who really need to read about one leg over the railing because they need to feel somebody else who is there so they can feel connected. And there are many, many people who love me who have said, Bill, I'm putting this book away until the spring or the summer because I can't. It's too close to home. And so as the author, I did my thing, and now it's in the world, and maybe hopefully a TV show. Oh, spoiler alert! Maybe we'll see. I'll let you all know. Please don't put anything on. Oh, I just said that on Facebook.
Everybody, shush.
No, it's all right.
Secret.
We're in some negotiations right now.
Bill,
So
that's so
I just want to
exciting.
say, Tanya says suicidal thoughts can come with feelings of loss. Connecting is critical, like sharing the weight of grief, which can pull our body physically down. Don't have to understand or know how to fix, just share. And Tanya's a poet also. She knows some stuff.
That's beautiful. And what I took from that is where it's felt in the body. It's that pulling the body down. And we just sometimes hearing those words can be powerful because yes, me too. My body too.
Mm-hmm.
My body too. Yeah. Anybody else on the Zoom call got a response or question for Bill? He'll answer anything.
Not anything.
You already just told us you're in negotiations. You're not supposed to do that.
I'd probably say anything at this point.
Do we have to get a poem or two in before 5:30?
No.
Oh, okay. No, that's at 5:30. Okay, sorry.
Jessica's got a question. Yeah.
Yeah, Bill, thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm just curious, obviously it seems as though you've moved through some of that deeper depression and into a different place. What, if you had to say one or two things that allowed you to move through that feeling, what would you say was the piece for you that helped?
One piece was related to this book and to that reading, and that is simply the understanding that there is no feeling in the world that is only mine. That's really helped me because for so long in my life I felt so alone. I feel things very deeply. And the fact is that doesn't exist. So if you've felt it before, if I've felt it before, so is somebody else. So that's in some ways what the book is. It's just an opportunity to share that with people in case they need to hear it and see it.
We do need to hear it. We do need to see it. And I thank you very much. It's close to home.
Thanks, Tracey. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Well, now that I brought everybody down, somebody pick us up.
No, it's not down at all. It's, a moment of, it's poignant. And so it's not down, it's poignant. It's that important. So you have our full attention.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
In a good way. It's a good way. Mm.
Yep, I'm getting some yeses over here in the comments.
That's great.
Okay.
That's great. Hey, there's Laura Fitton.
Thank you. Well, thanks so much, Bill, for not only reading, but, bringing this book out. And I find it really interesting that, you started this many, years ago before, the time that we're in right now. And, maybe it might seem just from that little bit that we read that, we are the people with one leg over the rail. But I'm sure that there's more to the book and the message of the book that than that little piece you read, and we can come away, thinking more metaphorically out the bridge as going forward, not only just going backwards.
Scott Lewis says it's not a downer, it's real and so needed right now.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks.
And also, I do want to say, just follow Bill on social media because he's got a wicked sense of humor. It's not all humor. Wicked smart.
Well, thank you. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and I try my best to stay away from Twitter.
That's probably a good idea. And we'll look forward to maybe some big announcement coming on other forms of media. I hope in the near future.
Please.
Yeah. Thanks again, Bill, for being with us today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Jeremiah.
Congrats, congratulations to you guys for what you're doing. I'm really excited for you, and I love the rebrand.
Thank you so much.
Love you, Bill.
And Jeremiah says, so well said, Bill. Powerful stuff.
All right, now
I think we'll segue into the next segment since we've got Jess Stickel with us. I'll just do her quick bio, and Jess is currently the student success coach at Prescott High School. Go Badgers. Mother of 3. And, my personal experience is that she was instrumental in helping Boys to Men set up and run our Boys to Men boys circles at Prescott High School. We couldn't have done it without you. You helped, navigate all the ins and outs of getting into the school and getting those set up. And also, Jess is a founding member of the Full Circle Girls Mentoring Group, which is running right now. And again, it's a shout out to Jess for your warmth, your compassion, and your passion for working with youth and, empowering them to be their best selves. I think something that kind of came up in one of our previous conversations. And Jess, I believe, gets the privilege and honor of interviewing Charles and Kelly. So I am going to turn it over to Jess. Take it away.
Great. Thank you so much. And I've locked myself in a room in the basement. So we should be good. So all right, you guys. Thank you so much for hosting this great event for everyone to enjoy, just to really feel the experience. As we into the portion where we get to talk to you, the creators, the hosts, what I would love to know, and I'm sure other people would also like to know, what prompted this? 1 year ago, what prompted the idea and the action behind it?
Do you want to say, Charles?
Well, we talked about it a little bit in the talk of the rebranding that Kelly's been trying to get me to do a podcast, to start a podcast ever since we've been going out. Kelly's a huge podcast fan. I don't know how many do you have that you listen to regularly?
I don't even know.
Dozens.
A lot.
Dozens.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm not really married to Kelly. I'm around while she listens to podcasts. But I was busy. I was running a nonprofit. What she was saying didn't make any sense to me. And then as soon as I stopped, there's a lot.
There's a lot. Oh my gosh.
But there was finally some space for it a year ago. And like I said, initially it was just like, let's just talk because nobody listens to us. And I tell the story in that first episode of being a 3-year-old. And at that point I was still an only child. My sister hadn't come in to mess everything up yet. And an uncle,
I'm gonna tell.
my sister's husband or my sister's brother was visiting, and he didn't have any kids yet.
Your sister's brother?
My mom's brother. Thank you. My uncle was visiting, and he didn't have kids. And I'm jabbering. He's taking me for a walk. I'm jabbering like I did as a 3-year-old, as an only child. And he, like a regular adult, was ignoring me. Like, what do you do with a 3-year-old jabbering? And I apparently tugged on his pant leg and said, God damn it, now you listen to me. And like I've been doing that for my whole life, because I've made up in the past that I wasn't being listened to, and that's just a bunch of hooey. I could work with any number of you wonderful therapists on this Zoom call and try and figure out what that was all about. But the podcast was kind of a way to break through on that for sure. And then, like I said earlier in this broadcast, it's changed. It's become something really different. And yeah, it's become a way to be in the world, I think, especially during COVID time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So this podcast actually started before COVID. And so what an interesting timeline that was. And so, Kelly, do you have any other thoughts on what prompted it? Or do you feel like you have different things that prompted this alongside of Charles or separate from Charles?
Well, it's just anybody who knows us knows, like, we have a lot to say. And I can't count the number of times that just the two of us were sitting on the back porch and just we're like, oh my God, that was an amazing conversation we just had. Why is it not in the world? And it happened over and over and over again. And then we know all of you amazing people. Our Facebook feed is full of them. The Zoom call is full of them. We tend to attract, or we are attracted to, amazing, smart, heartful, wonderful, genius people. And so everywhere we go, we have amazing conversations. And partly, Charles is not satisfied with being on the surface. I'm not, like we said with Tom Check, we don't do chit chat. We want to get into it. So because I like podcasts so much and I like hanging out with people that way because I'm an introvert, it just made a lot of sense. And then when Charles's mental and physical space opened up and he got into it, I'm like, yay, you want to do all the tech? He got me a cool mic like 3 years ago or whatever, and I never did anything with it. I had wanted to have a podcast with my friend Michelle, who's listening, and our other friend Suzanne. Like the three of us, we had talked about doing a podcast. We just couldn't get it together. Everybody's busy, whatever. But Charles, like, it just was the right idea at the right moment. And he's the right person to do that legwork, figure out how to do the tech, insist on standards and values that I'm just like, hey, let's just get together and ramble, and he wasn't having that. So we've had a few rounds over that one. But, he's made it amazing, and I get to show up and just do my thing for the most part, which I love. And I've said it over and over again. Having these conversations has saved me over the last year. And I've been struggling. I've talked about it on the podcast, and we're just talking with Bill, and that whole, depression's a bummer and it's really difficult. And these conversations is where I come alive. And so you all have saved me.
Aww.
And I'm grateful for that.
Well, if you build it, they will come, right? And so It sounds like the two of you really have created such a complementary, not only do you already have your relationship that's so complementary, but then you were able to share that into the world. And now you created this wonderful space that honors both of your strengths, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the neat part, is when you guys have this duo, people get to relate to both of you, and then it gets produced because of the technicality gift set as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, last question for you guys before we move on to the next is, really, over the last year, what would you say has been the greatest gift or your greatest gift, however you want to answer that question?
Good question. Let me just dive into that a little bit. I think, I resist a lot with Charles and his standards and his values and all of that. But because of that, I have had to, just like being in any challenging educational situation or life situation or whatever, like I've had to rise to the challenge. And when we rise to the challenge, yay, Matt's here. When we rise to the challenge, we find out that we're so much more than we thought. And I think we've had so many opportunities. I've had so many opportunities in the last year to rise to an occasion and find out that I had more grit, more integrity, more thoughtfulness, better listening skills. I've had a chance to practice all that stuff, and I've found that I have the capacity to do more.
So it sounds like you showed up.
Yeah. I've been called to show up over and over again.
Yeah.
Even when I didn't want to, even when I was bummed out, even when I was exhausted mentally and physically. Turns out I still was able to do stuff, and always was I glad at the end. I'm like, I never want to do it, and I'm always glad I did.
And it sounds like really it's because there's that connection to the greater community that this was really for. So it was coming out of that act of service. And so I really commend you for that. So thanks for showing up for us. What about you, Charles? What was the greatest gift or your greatest gift?
I think the greatest gift is just getting to be over and over again immersed in the power of conversation and showing up for one another. I've been, I spent 35 years as an outdoor educator sitting in circles with kids out on backpack trips or at a ropes course or at the base of a rock climbing wall saying, how did that feel? What was that like for you? And then I went to Boys to Men and sat around in a circle with boys in high school being like, what did that feel like? What is that like for you? And being able to express that myself. Well, this is what I was feeling today. And then to get to do that, on a podcast and just have people respond. We get to, we're all sitting around a fire in the dark, no matter whether we're on Zoom or at the base of a rock climbing cliff or in a classroom. We're just sitting around that fire as a tribe going, wow, that was a big mammoth. What was that like, Adam, when you just barely dodged that mammoth? So Laura, tell me more about the dream that you woke up with last night about the cave and the cave bear. And, it's just, I love it. We've been doing it for thousands of years, and I've been doing it for 40 years now. It just feels like this wonderful through line that ties my life together.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like it's just now you found another modality or another vehicle to continue the amazing heartfelt conversations that you've really seen change not only your life, but the lives around you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate you being here and bringing us all together. Together. Love it.
Hey.
Thanks for the great questions, Jess.
Yeah, and what you were just talking about, Charles, about showing up and talking about your emotions reminded me that we have some new guests that have joined the Zoom, and it's probably time to let them check in real quick. So I think we decided we would go with your name, a couple of feelings on how you feel right now, and just a couple of words on what it was like for you to be on the podcast with Charles and Kelly. So we'll start with Laura, we'll go to Matt, and then we're going to end with Jim, because Jim, I want to talk to you a little bit about and cue up maybe a reading of a poem or two. So Laura, we'll go over to you. Please check in.
All right, thank you. I have a terrible auditory memory, so I'm going to start answering, but you might need to prompt me on what the three things I'm saying are. My name's Laura Fitton. I'm in Boston. I lived in Risley, which I understand both Charles and Matt lived in, but I lived in there a little while after they did. I'm having a little bit of a fangirl moment because I did read Fool on the Hill and I am currently watching Country with a friend. So hi, Matt. Sorry.
Hello.
I do not normally dress like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but it is Halloween. And my primary emotion for the last whatever blob of time since, my friend texted me and said she's gone has been just, frantic screaming at people to listen to Black women because Black women are so ahead of us on organizing voter turnout, right? Like it's a very calculated strategy. It's like, wait a minute, let's deploy resources and support to the troops who are already out in the field and know how to get this stuff done. And so I've had to be really mindful of not going, woo, into that very frenetic energy and that very adrenaline. This is a fight. We gotta kill, win. But the through line I loved from what Bill read about connecting. I know nothing about actual depression, capital D, right? It's not been my experience. I'm blessed that way. But I know enough friends who have, and I've heard enough of what that journey's like, that when the present days really started to get real, and I picked frozen vegetables tonight in Boston, which is weird that there's still vegetables growing in October, but also they were under 4 inches of snow, and that's why I was picking them, which is also very weird for October. So like this year's this hot mess, and I started to notice things in me in March that were symptoms of depression that I knew because I had heard them from my friends. And so I reached out to a friend of mine who talks about depression a lot in his work online. And I said, dude, you've got to start talking about it again. I know it's not November. I know you're very seasonal on it and you really talk about it when you're going through it. But people who don't have any idea of all the like depression lies, feeling exhausted in bed, all the kind of depression 101, it was like the entire world suddenly needed that. And depression is at its most, again, this is an outsider, kind of a very, like weird take. But what I hear about living with depression is that it lies. It says these scary things. It takes people's lives. And most people in a depressive like arc or life or temporary time, whatever span it has, have time to come up to speed with that. And yet we suddenly had 100% of the population. And, so I was like, Chris, you got to get back on and like just start talking about all the things you say when you're going through it, because there's a lot of people who are going to fall for depression's lies and they're not going to have that base and that level and that experience. And so when he did start doing that, and one of the most beautiful phrases he used was, welcome those of you who have washed up on depression's shore for the first time. So I loved what Bill had to share, and I wanted to sort of put that out for the people who feel like, depression isn't my word. I can't use it. I don't want to, like people might feel that way. And yet all of us are feeling some parts of it this year, and that's okay. And there are people who are expert at this who can help us understand how to navigate that.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Thank you, Laura. Appreciate those words. Let's turn over to Matt real quick. Hi, Matt. Can you check in with how you're feeling and just a couple words on what it was like to be on the podcast?
Well, I'm an old friend of Charles's from we go back to Risley together, so it was just like old home week getting to meet up with him again. And I'm having a weird year too. This is professionally the best year of my life. My novel Lovecraft Country has been made into an HBO series, and so I've been dealing with that for the past 2 months. I've been on Zoom quite a bit. At the same time, it's one of the worst years in terms of everything else that's going on. So it's just a very strange time. And the other part of it, of course, with the COVID pandemic and the lockdown, it's just like even more so than normal because I work at home. Time has become meaningless and I don't really know when it is. And like I'm told there's actually an election next week and that people are fed up about that. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's just next week, is it? So it's kind of a weird sense of floating. And then, of course, the joke in my house, my mother was Brazilian. So if worse comes to worse, I can claim Brazilian citizenship, flee the U.S. and go live with Bolsonaro, and or just walk into the Amazon and vanish. So it's an interesting time.
All right, thank you, Matt, and we'll circle back around to you. So don't go to the Brazilian rainforest quite yet. We'll turn it over to Jim, and Jim, you want to say a few words about how you're feeling right now, and a little bit on your experience on the podcast.
Sure. Well, I'm Jim Natal, as you said, and I didn't know Charles and Kelly at all. I hadn't even been exposed to the podcast, but through my work at Yavapai College in Prescott, running the Literary Southwest Literary Series, they took an interest in what I was doing there. And now I'm in Los Angeles, so we have a lot of different locales represented here. And anyway, there's been a lot of Zooming going on, and I can honestly say in January I didn't know what Zoom was, and everybody has had to come up to speed on that and learn, and it's been a stretch in a positive way, and after years and years of running literary events and being a writer and so on. And being in person at events, it's been very interesting to try and find my way or figure out how to do this. I mean, maybe Matt's more used to dealing with like TV production or some other production, media. I'm not, and so you have to learn how to deal with this new world. I won't call it brave, but it's new, but then, also, looking at the other side, there are so many advantages to it. I mean, just now, the idea that someone's in Boston and Prescott and Los Angeles, and we're all here together right now, that's been amazing. And also the fact that your audience is unlimited. And, for years and 13 years, I ran the series at the college in Prescott, and we'd have 80 or 90 people, occasionally in the hundreds, to come to an event. But that's it. It's not going to get any more than that. But, the first time we did a Zoom, we had a very well-known author with us, Rebecca Skloot. We had 3,000, 10 times our highest ever, audience. So, it's just all learning how to do this. And what you've been talking about, I can't say I'm enjoying it, but I'm really fascinated by the things that are being said about depression and suicide and, being tired in bed. I know that, the idea that, I just don't want to get out of bed this morning. Once you get going, it's always, well, at least it is for me at the moment. But, that whole thing, and everybody I know is dealing with some form of depression or anxiety or fear. There's a lot of fear out there, and, hence all the people that are, worried about whether or not they're going to have to go to Brazil. I don't know if Bolsonaro is going to be a real win for you in that case. But anyway.
I'm sure he has a very nice basement for me. So.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's nice having another citizenship, and since nobody seems to want us. Anyway, but that's how my thoughts have been going.
Well, thank you, Jim. So you've kind of done a little bit of my work here. Part of my job was to do your biography. You've mentioned already doing the author readings and interviews for Prescott. I should mention that Jim's the author of 5 poetry collections, most recently Spare Room, the Haibun Variations, and 52 Views. The Haibun Variations written entirely with an update of the Japanese Haibun form. So what kind of prose and haiku-like poems. And I don't know if that's one of the ones you're going to be reading for us today, but and for the last 12 years, I guess before you were in LA, you worked to draw authors for readings and interviews here in little old Prescott. So yeah, thanks again, Jim, for being here today. And I understand you've got a couple poems that you might be reading for us today.
Did. Yeah, I brought a couple in, and looking at the theme that was presented, I realized I don't have many hopeful poems. And I thought, well, maybe I'll read one I know that I love by someone else. But then I said, no, just go with what you got. And I started thinking about, in the middle of the night thoughts, instead of listening to BBC, I decided, well, let me see what I can come up with. And I came up with two that both are rooted in the natural world. And one, they're different. They're approaching it from a different way. But I think, for me at least, sometimes that's my refuge. Not so much that I throw on a backpack and go out somewhere. It's just that I can retreat there in my mind too. And just knowing that nature is there, and nature will always be there, whether we are here or not. And a number of months ago when this all started, my sister is an art photographer and does just amazing environmental work. She travels all over, from the Gulf Coast to Iceland to Hawaii, photographing the visible aspects of climate change. And she turned me on to a book by an author named Alan Weissman called The World Without Us. And anybody who's interested, check him out. He does a couple of lectures on YouTube, and where his speaking engagements have been filmed, and it's fascinating, frightening and fascinating, but in a way comforting, knowing that if we're not here to do the damage, nature will heal. It will come back. Maybe not in the same way, but it will come back. So I guess that's a good intro to this first poem, which I surprised myself. It's not a real new one, but when I look back at it, I said, wow, it was written somewhere around 2004, and I could have written it yesterday. So anyway, it's called Animal Planet. This is the hour of hyenas, the hour of crows descending, filling the trees and scaring away the songbirds. This is the hour of the weasels, of rampant viruses, of lapdogs that bite your ankle as you walk away. Now the baboons are on the loose, seizing rocks and sticks, and the wrestling bears have mauled their trainers. Zoo elephants crush keepers underfoot. Siegfried and Roy have canceled tonight's performance. It's the wrong day to wear your pet python around your neck or to feed the piranhas by hand. Even the dolphins are in an ugly mood. They really do have teeth in those beaks. Lemurs and sloths are speeding up, sharpening their long climbing claws. Prehensile tails braid tightly across the canyon. Railroad bridges undermined by moles collapse. The lemmings turn back at the lip of the cliff, and beavers chew pines to block escape routes. Flocks of gulls loiter on airport runways, while winged tornadoes of flies, mosquitoes, wasps, and bees writhe through heavy air. Listen, locusts are humming something uber alles. And from the way they're waddling, the marsupials are packing heat in those pouches. This is no walk in the woods anymore. Picnic in the park, day at the beach. It's a jungle out there. Just ask the wolves, fleas and lice, sharks, raptors, scorpions, gators and rats. Is it time, Mr. Darwin? Is it time? Yeah, that's a real positive outlook, huh? Yeah.
Oh, no, it's perfect.
I think it sums up both the humor and the tragedy of the moment that we're in. Thank you for sharing that with us.
So on the other hand, looking at the glass half full, this one also goes back a few years. And I don't have to say too much about it. I think it speaks for itself. It's called but it maybe deals with the theme here a little bit more closely. It's called On Broken Top, Three Sisters Wilderness. I had almost forgotten the wildflowers, how they shelter in high mountain meadows, crimson Indian paintbrush, bushy pink monkey flower, purple lupine haloed by white airbursts of Queen Anne's lace. Had almost forgotten that every stream has a different voice. Snowmelt, riffle, rocky course, waterfall, and how river forks slither through marshlands, and the semi-precious palette of glacial lakes, creamy jade, rusty garnet, turquoise lit from within. Had almost forgotten the dry drum thump of boots treading needle mulch beneath the trunks, and how a blue noble handshake becomes a caress. Pine pollen like cloud banks you pass through on your way. Had almost forgotten how life always finds a grip, how ferns can jimmy themselves into pumice rifts and bristlecones trace their ancestry to a seed hole in a crevice, a thrusting out and then upward, and how growing things at altitude have stature despite clinging so low to the ground. Dwarf architecture of moss, yellow broomlets of lichen, huddled heather. I remember now the weather, the way upslope twists by weather branches, not out of shape, but into shape, and how the word thistle lisps like a breeze in the pines, and that sweeping aside a stone on the trail can veer the course of the world.
Whoa. Oh, yeah.
And that's basically kind of a true, recounting of that experience. I actually was visiting a friend who lived up in Bend, Oregon, and we'd known each other for years, and he took me on a hike up to the top of this, in the Three Sisters on this mountain. And there were just spectacular views of all these mountain lakes as I described them. And I just sat there thinking, it's been a long time since you've been out doing this, that I have been in this kind of an environment. And I forgot so much about it and how essential it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jim, I really love the line about how, even though I can't remember the line exactly, but even how they're all low to the ground, they have stature. Mm-hmm. And your poem lifted all of that up. Like I thought, that little line was kind of the center of that for me. It's like, that's what you were doing. You were lifting all of that up into our sight so we can see it again and value it. Thank you.
And it was lifting me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Jim, for sharing those poems and, giving us a different perspective than the one maybe than we came in with. We were talking about, depression and suicide, anxiety and uncertainty. So thank you for sharing that.
Go for a hike.
Connecting us with nature. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like we went down into the underworld and now we're coming back out.
Yeah. Well, I learned something many, many years ago when I was
just before you go,
sure.
You got to say goodbye to Jess. She's got to go take care of her family. Thank you, Jessy. Thanks for being a host.
Much.
Thanks for being here together.
Bye.
Anyway. It's something I learned a long time ago when I was in college. I had my own little apartment for the first time, and I was, a little tiny place, and I was getting pretty depressed, dealing with what was going on. And finally, after many days, I just went out to go to the store or to go someplace. And when I got outside, I went, oh, that's not so bad. And I realized, you just get inside your own head or your own four walls. And of course, in those days, it wasn't enforced as it is now. But still, the secret is just get out of yourself for a little bit, whether it's with other people or podcasts or whatever, or something like this event.
Yeah.
And congratulations on this, by the way, on your year.
Thank you.
Thank you for including me.
Well, that sets us up, that idea of, kind of bringing ourselves out of where we are, maybe in the present, to somewhere else, kind of sets up the next part of our little soiree tonight. And I'd like to bring in Matt Ruff in the remaining time that we have here. Gosh, talk about different authors we've had on tonight. You've had 7 different books, including the one right behind you, Lovecraft Country, that maybe many in our audience.
Oh, they're all back there.
But, just looking at your range of work. So you've done speculative fiction, literary fantasy, alternate history, gothic horror, just a whole variety of things. And maybe one of those might resonate with someone right now in this moment that we're in, other than Lovecraft Country. But I don't know, Matt, how do you feel about this moment and the work that you're maybe best known for? Is that kind of matching the mood of the country right now, or is it taking us?
I think Lovecraft Country certainly has been resonating with people. I think just because of of course, when you're writing about racism, that there's never a time when it doesn't resonate in some sense with the country. So, but I think that is definitely, like I say, it's been a very strange year, simultaneously one of the best of my life and at the same time just 2020. So
what's been the best part of the best?
First of all, just making the bestseller list for the first time in my life. I'm a New York Times bestseller now, thanks to the TV show. So that was kind of they send you. They don't do this for all authors, but apparently the division of Harper I'm affiliated with now, they send you a plaque with your New York Times your New York Times list of the first week you break onto the list. And so that's my keepsake for this year. And the other thing was just the experience of seeing my book brought to life on television and finding out that, I'd always hoped that I would not be one of those territorial authors who freaks out if they change anything from the story. And I found that, no, I am not. In fact, I was very excited to see a different version of the story. It was just a lot of fun, and I had a grand time watching it. So it's just been great that way. I'm
glad you weren't precious. I'm glad you weren't precious about it, because they changed a lot.
No, and but I've really enjoyed it. I mean, there were, towards the end of the season, there were a couple of times I had to watch shows twice because I was pretty good about keeping my preconceptions out of the way. But once in a while, it was like, wait a minute, really? You went there? And I would have to go back and watch a second time just to take it on its own terms. But when I did that, I had a blast. So it's been a great fun and yeah. So that's been a wild experience.
Right, and we should mention that your newest book, 88 Names, published right around the beginning of the whole COVID crisis. And
it came out a week before the lockdown, so I had that exciting week when we all thought naively, first of all, that I could pick and choose which parts of my book tour to jettison, and that, well, this will blow over in a couple of weeks, maybe a month. We'll stay indoors, and then everybody will be fine. And no, in fact, and So yes, I suppose the good thing about that was because it's a novel set in virtual reality, I was sort of set up to go on Zoom and spend my year or maybe the next 2 years on Zoom if I have to. So I had the equipment and I got to play around in virtual reality for real. But it's still been an interesting year.
So if anybody listening to this is curious about kind of the origin story for Lovecraft Country and a little bit more about 88 Names, and also why Kelly and I advocate for Set This House in Order as Matt Ruff's best book, you could listen to the podcast that we did with Matt a couple months ago. Yeah.
Which was, that was a lot of fun. Has it only been 2 months? Man.
I don't know.
Time has.
I said a couple months. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Time is broken.
Yep.
So speaking of time, I know you guys were supposed to wrap at 6. I did bring something to read, but I just want to make sure I don't keep you too long. Charles, you're nodding your head. I don't know what that means.
I would love to hear what, I mean, it's Facebook. It's not like.
Okay, fair enough then.
It's not like they shut down the venue.
Let's just keep doing it.
On next.
So, okay, I was thinking about your theme and improving the world and making the world a better place. And the thing that came to mind, partly because it sort of fits the mood of this moment too, and this is a book I wrote right after the 9/11 attacks happened, is Bad Monkeys. Let me try to set the scene as quickly as possible. So this is a story. It's about a woman named Jane Charlotte who is arrested for murder, who tells the police that she belongs to a secret organization that fights evil. And so the novel is her in a room with a jailhouse psychiatrist who's having her tell him the story of her involvement with this organization and trying to figure out, is she lying to get away with murder? Is she just crazy, or is something else going on here? So her initial contact with this organization comes when she is young, when she becomes convinced that the janitor at her high school is actually a serial killer called the Angel of Death. And she decides to Nancy Drew this problem and try and get the goods on him, and it goes horribly wrong. She just ends up embarrassing herself and alerting the guy to the fact that she's on to him. But fortunately for her, this secret organization that she will one day be a member of have already targeted this guy. So the day he comes for her, she has help. So her aunt and uncle are out at the movies, and she's home alone doing a crossword puzzle. And she begins to realize that there's a secret message in this crossword puzzle she's doing that tells her to look under the sink in the kitchen. And when she goes and does that, there is a gun under the sink, but not an ordinary gun. It is what is called an NC gun. It looks kind of like a heavy water pistol. And NC stands for natural causes, and this is a weapon that people in this organization use. It does not shoot bullets. It shoots strokes and heart attacks. So you shoot somebody with this, they just keel over dead, and looks like they just happened to die in that moment. And so she finds the gun just in time. The lights go out. The janitor breaks into the house, and then she shoots him. And then she falls asleep. And, she's telling this to the psychiatrist, who's like, so it's kind of like a dream you had, in other words. And she says, no, it really did happen. But, of course, when she woke up the next day, all of the evidence had disappeared. The body was gone. The gun was gone. All that remained was this coin under her pillow, like left to her by the gun fairy, she jokes, and it is a coin inscribed with the motto of this organization, which is Omnis Mundum Facimus, which roughly translated means we all make the world. And how it translates. As to what it means, it takes her, quite a while to figure that out, but she eventually does. But anyway, the way she interprets this experience is that she's somehow brushed up against this powerful organization. She doesn't know exactly who they are, but she feels that she's acquitted herself well, and that the coin is a promise that when she is older, they will come back and recruit her, and she will get to be Nancy Drew with a magic gun and go hunt bad guys. And so she spends the next 22 years waiting for them to call her back, basically, and they don't. And meanwhile, she's living a fairly dissolute life because she figures her destiny is taken care of, so she's not really doing anything with her life, and she's waiting and she's waiting. And she's pretty much at her wit's end when the next thing happens, which is that she's living in San Francisco. She's called for jury duty. It's a murder trial. The guy on trial is a guy named Julius Deeds, and it turns out that she's met him before. They have a mutual acquaintance, which is her drug dealer, and she met him the last time she went to buy drugs. And this guy is a very bad person, and she recognizes him, and unfortunately he recognizes her too. And this doesn't click until after she's already been selected to be on the jury. So, of course, she's a little nervous now. And then the next morning she wakes up and she gets a phone call, and it's Julius Deeds basically calling to threaten her and try to make her, say, you are going to vote not guilty in my murder trial. However, Jane is someone who doesn't respond well to threats under the best of circumstances. And this is an unusual morning. This is the morning of 9/11. So it's this very surreal moment where She's on the phone being threatened by this guy, but she's also watching the towers fall on TV. And so her response in that moment is basically to tell the guy to go screw himself and hang up on him, which feels very empowering and cool in the moment. And then when she has time to think about it, she's like, that probably wasn't very smart. And it's true. It wasn't very smart. He eventually tracks her down and beats the crap out of her. And she wakes up in the hospital. And it is at that moment, as she is waking up in the hospital, recovering from head trauma, that the mysterious organization finally gets back in touch with her. I was in a coma for 10 days. I woke up in a darkened hospital room with a television playing somewhere nearby. Tom Cruise was talking about a priest who died giving last rites to a fireman at Ground Zero. Then Mariah Carey started singing that we all have a hero inside us, and I thought maybe I died and this was hell. But the show went on, with more celebrities coming out to sing and tell stories, and there were calls for donations, and eventually I realized I wasn't in hell. I was just in America. The cops came around. I told them I didn't know who'd attacked me. Then Phil came to see me, and I told him the same thing, but he knew I was lying. I told him to mind his own business. I had another visitor, too. I first noticed him about a week after I woke up, and for a while I wasn't sure he was real. I was in a lot of pain, but because of the coma, the doctors were nervous about drugging me. But I kept after them, and eventually they put me on a morphine drip, and I was floating on that when this guy showed up. He was black with a round face. He sat in a chair over by the window, watching me. What made you think he wasn't real? The way he was dressed. He had on this cheerleader's uniform, pink checked skirt, pink sweater with OMF across the chest, pink pom-poms, plus this wig, a yarn wig like a pink mop head with pigtails. That does sound a little strange. On the other hand, San Francisco, yeah, I thought of that too, but the other thing about this guy, nobody else seemed to be able to see him. I tried to draw attention to him without, actually saying anything. If it turned out he wasn't real, I didn't want my morphine drip pulled, but no dice. So finally I gave in and tried talking to him. What do you want? What's the magic phrase, he said. What? What's the magic phrase? He lowered his pom-poms and puffed his chest out. Omnis mundum facimus, I said. That's it. Now look under your pillow. It took some major maneuvering, but eventually I slipped my good arm under the pillow. My hand closed around a coin, the coin. I was more relieved than I could say, but I was also pissed off. Now you show up? Where the hell were you when that asshole was beating the shit out of me? That was an oversight, he said, frowning. Not my department, you understand, but I am sorry. It was a busy day and details got missed. So why now? Well, I know you got hit in the head, but you are aware of recent events, right? The organization I represent, that coin represents, is holding a recruitment drive. You want me to help fight terrorism? No, there's people all over the country lining up to do that. Well, what then? Well, the thing about one big evil taking center stage, it tends to draw attention away from all the other evils. So now somebody's got to swim against the tide to make sure those other evils don't flourish from neglect. You could be a part of that if you're interested. But why now? I persisted. Those other evils, they were always there, so why didn't you come for me sooner? Omnis mundum facimus, he said. You looked up the translation for that, right? You know it doesn't mean wait for further instructions or stand around with your thumb up your ass. No, but let me lay another saying on you. Many are called, but few are chosen. Now, the implication is that the few are special, brave enough to answer the call or worthy enough to be chosen. But there's another way of looking at it. If many are called and few are chosen, maybe that's because most of the many have better things to do. He shook a pom-pom at me accusingly. You had a life. It was hoped you'd do something with it. Great, I said. So you're telling me you're the booby prize? He laughed again. I do like that spirit. We can use that spirit. So the question becomes, are you willing to let it be used? Are you ready to be one of the few? You know I am. All right, then. Tomorrow night between 7 and 7:15, you're to go to the top floor of this building. Turn left out the elevator and look for a door marked Examination 1. If you come early or show up late, it'll be just an empty room. But if you come on time, you'll meet a man named Robert True who'll tell you what the next step is. That was all he had to say to me, but still he sat there watching me and smiling. Go ahead, he finally said. Ask it. Okay. Why are you dressed like a cheerleader? You know what a non-disclosure agreement is, Jane? This outfit serves the same purpose. What do you suppose would happen if you told the hospital staff about our conversation? They'd cut off my drugs. You got it, he said, and winked. A few moments later, a nurse came in and gave me a shot. I fell asleep, and when I woke up again, my visitor was gone, but the coin was still there, safe under my pillow. The next evening, I made sure I was awake. At 6:45, I hauled myself out of bed and wheeled my IV stand to the elevator. I went up to the 14th floor and found examination 1, and at 7:01, I knocked. "Come in," a voice said. Inside, the room was a lot like this one. Spare, I mean, with just a table and a couple of chairs. Robert True was standing when I came in. He was wearing a gray flannel suit that might have been stylish back when Ozzie and Harriet was a hit TV show. He was short and heavy and didn't have much hair. "Welcome, Jane," he greeted me. "I'm Bob True." "Hi," I said. "Omnis mundum facimus." "That's all right. I don't need the magic phrase. But as long as we're on the subject, have you worked it out yet?" I had, finally. "It's a comeback," I told him. That thing people say when they don't want to be blamed for a bad situation. I didn't make the world. I only live in it. But we all make the world. Very good. So that's what you're about, your organization, making the world a better place? By fighting evil in all its forms, True said, nodding. Are you the government? He seemed surprised by the question. Does the government fight evil? I thought about it. For some reason, the first thing that came to mind wasn't the FBI or the justice system, but my last trip to the DMV. Well, I said, it can. Lots of things can fight evil, True replied. Cinder blocks, for example. If a cinder block had fallen in Joseph Stalin's crib, the 20th century might have been a bit more pleasant. Even if one had, though, I doubt most people would say that the purpose of cinder blocks is to fight evil. So you're not the government. What are you then? Vigilantes? You hunt bad guys, right? The organization pursues its goal through diverse means, most of them constructive. We employ good Samaritans, random acts of kindness, second and third chances. He went on, ticking off more than a dozen of what I eventually understood were division names, actual organization departments that fought evil in positive, life-affirming ways. My eyes must have glazed over because suddenly he stopped and said, "Am I boring you?" "A little," I admitted. "So which are you, a good Samaritan or a random actor?" "I work for what's known as the Cost Benefits Division." "You handle the money." "I help allocate the organization's resources, which are substantial but still finite." "Resources includes people?" "Of course." "Well then, if you know anything about people, you know I'm not a good Samaritan." "No," True said, "I don't suppose you are." He placed a green NC gun in the center of the table. "You'll recognize this. The one I had last time was orange. The one you had last time was standard issue. This is a special model." "What's special about it?" "We'll get to that. First, I have a hypothetical question for you, a test question." "Okay. There are two men, both evil. One is a former concentration camp commandant responsible for the murder of 500,000 people. He's 90 years old, living in hiding in the South American jungle. The other man is much younger, barely 25, in excellent health, and living openly in the middle of San Francisco. He's only killed once so far, but he's discovered he has a talent and a taste for it, and it's likely he'll kill again many times. Though, of course, the total number of his victims will never be more than a fraction of the commandant's. The death of either of these men would leave the world a better place. You have the power to kill one of them, but only one. Whom do you choose?" "That's easy," I said. "The young guy." "Why?" "Because killing the Nazi is the obvious choice, and this is a trick question." "Clever," True said, in a tone that suggested it was anything but. "Now how about a less glib answer? In this hypothetical situation, I'm supposed to be you? Someone with my job description, let's say. Then the answer's the same. Kill the young guy. Why? His worst days are still ahead of him. With the Nazi, the Holocaust is already out of the barn. Killing him might be more satisfying, but the net benefit is smaller." "What about deterrence?" True said. "Wouldn't killing the Nazi discourage other people from following in his footsteps?" "It might if it were a public execution. If I were the government, I could put him on trial for genocide and then hang him on pay-per-view. That might turn some heads. Trouble is, I'm not the government. I'm a member of a secret organization that dresses its agents like cheerleaders so people can't talk about them. An execution that no one knows about won't deter squat." "What about justice?" "Is this a hypothetical real situation or a hypothetical comic book?" "And what about vengeance?" "It's fun, but it doesn't have anything to do with fighting evil." "No," True agreed, "it doesn't." "Does that mean I passed the test?" "The first half. The second half is less theoretical." He laid a couple booklets on the table. They looked like those question booklets you get when you take the SATs. A name was written on the cover of each one in felt-tip pen. The one on the first booklet was Benjamin Loomis. The one on the second was Julius Deeds. "Two men," True said, "both evil. One you've already met. Yeah, I have, I said, and he's not 90 years old, if that's where you're going with this. Julius Deeds has been indicted for murder. The case against him is strong, and despite his efforts at jury tampering, he'll probably be convicted. Even if he avoids prison, his actions have made him enemies on both sides of the law. A 90-year-old might well outlive him. And Loomis? Let me guess, he's barely 25 in excellent health. 27, actually, and he's killed 4 times, not just once. Other than that, yes, he's just like the younger man in the hypothetical, a predator. He's been operating on a 3-month cycle, so unless someone stops him, we expect he'll take his next victim in early December. The police don't have a clue who he is. The police aren't even aware of his crimes yet. In time, he'll be found out, of course. They almost always are, but it could be years from now. I stared at the table. The gun's a one-shot, isn't it? That's the special modification, and the test is I have to choose. We need to know what your priorities are, True said. In a moment, you'll select one of these booklets. Inside, you'll find all the information you need to complete your first assignment. The other booklet will go back into our files with a notation that its subject is never to be harmed or otherwise acted against by any agent of the organization. So if I pick Deeds, Loomis gets a free pass, you'd really do that? It wouldn't be much of a test otherwise. He looked at his wristwatch. You have 1 minute to decide. So that's sort of the setup for this, and I won't spoil it for you, but the key understanding here is that there are, the way True looks at it, the test is Jane willing to set aside her own selfish desire for revenge for a higher cause? And for Jane, the test is there a way I can have my cake and eat it too? And Jane is very good at finding ways to have her cake and eat it too. So anyway, I figured this was the goofy Matt Ruff take on your subject, that this novel was very much about the sort of the desire to make the world a better place. I would say if there's a moral here, it involves definitely a passionate intensity, but also a certain amount of being able to deny your own needs and focus on the bigger picture, and then just the ability to make smart choices and finding a balance between all of those 3 things. And I think that's what I would encourage people to do in life. In a novel, of course, I'm free to make Jane somebody who's all passionate intensity and not very good at self-denial. So anyway, that's my contribution tonight, the goofy Matt Ruff version.
That was awesome. And I totally have to read that now.
I want to hear what Laura's got to say, the self-professed fangirl.
I want to know what Jane ends up thinking. And I also really relate. Jane's my middle name, and I have no impulse control. So I really
look out for cheerleaders bearing coins.
This was my Philip K. Dick novel, was my joke. And Jane Charlotte, actually the name comes from Philip K. Dick had a twin sister who died in infancy. And so basically it's my version of Shakespeare's sister, is like she's the star of and she's got a brother Phil who may or may not be a ghost in the novel. So yeah. So anyway, that's where the name comes from.
And I'm curious what Jim the poet thinks.
Well, I'm blown away. I just wish we could have read another paragraph or 2.
Yeah.
You know? But then, yes, then I wouldn't have to read the whole thing. No, I think it's amazing. And, you know, I obviously, Matt, we've never met. And I actually have to admit, I haven't ever read anything of yours.
Most people haven't. It's fine.
Well, no, but that's not it. But I've heard your name a lot recently. And of course, I have HBO at home and Netflix. And so I'm seeing all kinds of incredible reviews about Lovecraft Country, you know, in the New York Times every day, you know, on their TV and viewing and so on. So, you know, the fact that that's one of your middle novels, it sounds like, you know, kind of in the middle of what you put out. I mean, that's, you know, remarkable for at that point. And then I can only assume you've gotten better. I mean,
I would like to think so, but yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, I have to assume that. And with that skill, and, you know, my mind works so differently than the way you've had to plot that novel. First of all, I'm not a storyteller. I am, but I only get a page, you know, you get 300, you know, and, but at the same time, you know, I'm always in awe of people who can not only think this stuff up, especially, and I love kind of Philip K. Dick and kind of science fiction and apocalyptic novels like The Road and so on. But the idea that you can not only think it up, that's one thing, but to actually execute it with craft and style and voice on the page, to me is just like beyond belief, I mean, although I do believe it, obviously. So please, thank you. I'm really excited that I got to be here and hear this with you today.
Well, thank
Charles
you.
mentioned you when I did my podcast with him, but this is just awesome.
By the way, I'm belatedly looking at the chat, and yes, Charles, I am good to stay a little longer.
Okay. So Matt, I want to, kind of in the way, I don't know if you were here when we were talking to Bill Konigsberg about his book and about the idea. He's got two characters.
No,
he's got two characters, each with their leg over the railing of a bridge. And I of course, am like, this is where we all are, right? We've all got one leg over the railing in 2020. So I'm going to do the same thing to this book. Is like, didn't she fail? All right, let's put it this way. I want to pass Charlotte's test earlier. I don't want to have to get to the place where my choices, our collective choices, are that binary. Like I want to do what she was supposed to do when she first got the coin, right? It's like, let's I got to find ways to be the good Samaritan or do the random acts of kindness or whatever it is, right? I don't want to
that's definitely not Jane's vibe, but
yeah. But it's a warning to me. It's a moral a little bit to me. I mean, it's kind of fun to go down her path and get to tote guns around and stuff, but that's not that doesn't really work for me as a person.
No. Well, that was the thing. It was like funny talking about this book. And again, it was in the immediate aftermath of 9/11. And people would ask me, well, what do you really think about vigilante violence? And my answer was always, it's a lot more fun in books than in real life. And I think it works a lot better in books than in real life. If you had the wisdom of this super secret organization, then you wouldn't need guns. You could just find other ways to do stuff. So it's a fun fantasy, but it obviously is not. Drama is in many ways bad choices. So good drama is doing the thing that you shouldn't do because it's more interesting than doing the story is over if you do the right thing on the first page. So
Right.
That's just a universally applicable quote. Drama is bad choices.
T-shirt, go. You heard it here first.
Kelly, start working on that one.
But I've never made bad choices and had drama result.
Yeah.
Well, we need to draw a winner and let everybody go eat.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah. Our DoorDash person, I think, just pulled up.
Oh, yummy.
What are we having?
Burgers from Bill's Grill. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, everybody out there who's watching or who did watch, who is now watching in the recording later or listening on the podcast later. Thank all of you for being a part of this. And kind of my blessing and hope for everybody is that none of us are forced into the choices that Matt Ruff just outlined for us. Let's not end up there, right? But yeah, this has been a lovely evening for me, and it's wonderful to see your faces on Zoom and to see all the comments coming on Facebook. This has been a wonderful anniversary party, and thank you for being here together.
And let me just add my congratulations to everybody else's. This is great. So really for you guys.
Thank you. And I don't know if everybody knows this, but the average age of a pod or I think it's I don't know if it's the average age, but most podcasts don't last longer than 6 months. So to get to a year, we're doing great. Yeah.
So, Charles, you want to draw a name real quick before everybody has to skate?
I've got the name.
I don't know who's still here. Who's gonna? Oh yeah, Tanya's done with dinner on the East Coast.
All right,
Matt, where in Risley did you live?
First year was the end of one of the third floor halls. I no longer remember where. And then I moved up to the tower, the 5th floor, my last year there, senior year.
Nice.
It was a clear case of favoritism when he got the tower room. So the winner.
I got a tower room freshman year. Remember my crazy thing?
Oh yeah, I don't know how that happened. So for people who don't know, Risley is basically a castle on the Cornell campus that is a residence hall, and it's got a central tower. And if you're really cool, you get to live in the central tower. If you're only kind of cool,
there's only 8 rooms in the tower, right?
Octagons and arrow slits.
Yeah.
I was in the 4.5 floor. I was in one of the terrible rooms.
Oh,
this grad student who had gotten a double to himself and was kind of agoraphobic inside the room. He's like, "This room's too big. I want your tiny, ridiculous room." And I'm like, "Really?"
Wow. Well, that's lucky.
Didn't Jeff?
Luck is my superpower.
Nice. Yes. All right. So thanks everybody, and the winner of the hoodie, the custom HERE.together hoodie, is Karen Broman.
Is Karen here, or are we going to break our rule?
We're going to break our rule. I told everybody we had to be present to
we
win.
Stayed long, and everybody left.
And I'm really excited for this for Karen. Karen works with harm mitigation in this community, getting people access to clean needles, to healthcare, to hepatitis testing, to AIDS testing. She's doing great good in this community. So
awesome! Yeah, congratulations, Karen. Wherever you are,
y'all are welcome to stay on the Zoom. I'll leave it open if you want to chat. You can keep talking about Risley.
So much love to anyone watching this from Arizona, because man, the rest of the nation is looking at you in this election.
Oh, let's hope we can make you proud.
Thanks for everything, man.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you. And Adam's from Ithaca too.
Yep. Congratulations, guys.
Yes, it's like Adam grew up in Ithaca. Yeah, thank you, Jim. Thank you.
Was Risley where they had the Quill and Dagger Society or whatever? Or was that in a different one?
Karen's here.
In West.
Oh, okay.
They had a secret room at the top because Matt, did you know John Kleiman? Weren't you all in Risley at the same time, Charles? Did you know John Kleiman?
Maybe.
I had this. You talked about
the names are starting to fade.
Jim, you talked about not leaving your college apartment. I had a friend who was like a 5th year, who kind of took me under his wing freshman year, and he would literally come to the dorm once a week and pick me up and take me grocery shopping, because the grocery stores were like way on the other side of Earth, and he knew I was myself, and he didn't want me to starve. So that is so important. But he took me up to the Quill and Dagger room one time. It was in this crazy Gothic building on West Campus. No, Risley was over on North.
Yep.
And it was, it had a theater. It had recording studios.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Where you could make chainmail.
Right. The SCI folks hung out there.
Completely out there artist types, like maybe 3 people on this call. Or it was the super diligent architecture students who that was the closest dorm to where their school was. So it was a wild mix.
I just always wanted to go up and see what those Quill and Dagger folks are doing, but never got an invite.
We did have the I ate hot truck up in the Quill and Dagger room when it was empty one time, right? Like I never went to a meeting, but we did have the Society for Creative Anachronism.
Yeah, SCA. I remember those folks. Yeah.
So for those of you still on the stream, this has turned into a Cornell Club meeting. So you're welcome. You're welcome to share your alma mater stories, or go have dinner or whatever.
Thanks. Hey, Matt, where do you live now?
Seattle.
Okay.
Wife and I moved out here. We wanted 4 seasons, but not the brutal winters. And this was basically the Pacific Northwest was perfect for that. So
cool.
Excellent.
All right. Well, I'm going to go run and eat my dinner. Great talking with you. Say bye to Charles from
Kelly. Very nice to meet you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone, so much. Guys. It was wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. We love you.
Thank you. Enjoy your takeout.
Bye-bye.
Yes.
Hey, Charles, we're taking off, so good to see you.
Bye, Charles.
Bye, Matt. Thank you. And congratulations. The show is a masterpiece.
Oh, well, thank you. I wish I could take credit for that, but Misha did the heavy lifting on the show. So,
but it's a feather in your cap nonetheless.
I'm really happy. So, yes. Anyway, peace, guys. Have a good night.
Peace. Thank you.